quiet radicalization the media keeps missing. While TV panels obsess over whether the woke left is too extreme, leaked Telegram chats this week show rising GOP youth leaders joking about gas chambers, rape, and Hitler. Politico, the online news magazine, obtained nearly 3,000 pages of messages from young Republicans across multiple states. Quote, "Everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber," is one of the quotes. And another, the same person said, a young Republican activist said, "Great, I love Hitler." Let me point out, this is not a left-wing Hollywood producer or screenwriter trying to make all conservatives look bad. This is an actual card-carrying activist member of the Young Republicans saying, "I love Hitler." These aren't random trolls. They're state-level party leaders and congressional aides. So people who actually are in leadership positions and rising leaders in one of the two dominant political parties in America, sharing these views. And yet, this kind of hate doesn't define the Republican brand the way defund the police supposedly defines the left, even though no major Democrat or liberal commentator has ever endorsed that slogan repeatedly. And I understand some for about 5 minutes said, yeah, and they quickly backtracked it. But you didn't see that coming from anyone in the Biden administration or any top Democrat in a leadership position in the House or Senate ever saying that. The story shows how deeply normalized bigotry has become inside parts of the right, while the media continues to chase and spread the myth of left-wing extremism. What's the real message here? We're told again and again and again by the media that the problem in American culture is the Democrats are controlled by these woke left extremists who get angry if you use the word Latina, and they're so busy defunding the police. Meanwhile, here we have actual text documented by Politico of rising, emergent, state-level Republican leaders saying they love Hitler. They want people who disagree with them to get the gas chamber. This is the real extremism in America today, and it gets almost no media attention. Let's dig a little deeper. I'm here today not as a partisan, regardless of what you think. I'm here as a communications expert. I've spent my life working with CEOs, billionaire fund managers, billionaire owners of sports teams, celebrities, Miss Universes, and yes, politicians. I'm an expert on how to craft and communicate ideas. And I think it's helpful for you to know how ideas are being marketed to you, how they're being communicated to you, so you get a more accurate sense of reality. So here is the reality. In every democracy in the world, there is a center-left party. And in most major democracies that have thriving economies, if you look at the top 10 economies in the world, these political parties either dominate most of the time or they're in power half the time. These are the political parties that have created modern prosperity. It's why when you look at that graph of human productivity, per capita productivity for the last 2,000 years, it's completely flat until the last 200 years, and it goes up because you had the revolution in technology, industrialized revolution, and you had democracy coming about. And in the countries that have done well, you've had centrist parties. Sometimes they're mildly center-right, sometimes center-left, but and occasionally it goes one way or the other, more extreme. But for the most part, center and center-left parties have created the modern worldwide economy and the modern prosperity. In every single democracy, if there's a center-left party, there are people who support that party who are a little further to the left and a little further to the left and a little further. So there's always some fanatic in every single party in the world, and every center-left party has some extremist who's always saying something stupid. And you know what? Every center-right party has the same. Every single day, there's someone in America who aligns themselves with MAGA, with Trump, with Republicans, and says something extremely bizarre, like, I'd like to kill all Jews, or I'd like to send every black person back to Africa. Extremist, obnoxious, vile things are said every single day by people who are in some way associated with the right. I'm here as a sane, sensible centrist. I'm here to tell you it's not fair to judge either party by what extremists say. And yet we live in a two-tiered world where one faculty, representative, one professor in some obscure, small private school in a small state in the Midwest one time says, hey, let's use this word Latinx rather than Latinos. That gets magnified, and there's 10,000 stories on that every day for the next 10 years. To this day, in my entire life, I've never heard anyone on the any centrist, any Democrat, any liberal, any progressive, anyone on the so-called left actually use the word Latinx, referring to Latinos. What I have heard hundreds, if not thousands of times, is Republicans and conservatives and talk show hosts and people like Bill Maher, who seem to make a living out of putting a spotlight on the so-called atrocities of this radical woke left that's taking over the world. And again, I've seen thousands and thousands of mentions about this horrible problem of the woke left doing things like demanding that people use the word Latinx. And yet I've never seen it once. I defy you to show me a speech on the floor of the House of Representatives from a major Democrat or from President Biden demanding that everyone refer to Latinos as Latinx or Spanish-speaking people as Latinx. You can't find it. Google it. You'll find out. And yet we're told again and again and again that, the Democratic Party is so far left. They're so far woke. They're so extreme by doing things like saying, you got to use Latinx. They're beyond the pale. And the other one is that we have to defund the police. Okay, out of 10,000 elected officials in this country, if you look at president, you look at senators, House members, governors, state legislators, mayors, city commissioners, soil conservation managers, people who ran as a Democrat and won and served office. I defy you, out of 10,000, I defy you to find more than a handful of who actually called for defunding the police. And I really would be interested if you could find any who said, let's eliminate them. Now let's step back for a minute. This idea that every other government organization in the world is bloated and wasteful and has excess overhead, and we need to cut. That's a common thought that we hear every single day from primarily conservative ideologists, conservative political leaders. Isn't it odd that every single government agency is filled with bloat, lazy people, people who are just there for the paycheck, people pushing? Isn't it odd that every single government agency has waste, fraud, and abuse, where if you cut it by 10%, 20%, there wouldn't be any harm? And in the case of our education department, the common mantra now is you just get rid of it all and there'll be no harm. Isn't it odd that the same people who are so dogmatic about how everyone in government is nothing but waste, but wow, if someone suggests even cutting the budget 5% of any police department ever, they're instantly anti-police, pro-crime, and they want hordes of murderers to come into your town, knock on every door, and take out everyone. That's a bit of a stretch. Again, show me someone who said, let's completely take away every penny of our local police department, and show me how prominent they are as a real thought leader, how many votes they got. I think you're going to have a hard time finding that. So my point again is there's this huge asymmetry. Every political party is a part of a spectrum. It's on the political spectrum. There are always going to be some people who are a member of any party who are on one extreme of a spectrum saying outlandish things. You cannot judge one party based on outlandish things that a small number of people who have no real clout in the party, you can't say that defines the party. And yet here's another party where people say extraordinarily ugly, inflammatory, extremist things, and they're actually key staffers. They're actually rising up and comers. They're actually going to be running for office, and say, well, that doesn't count. That doesn't define us, because that is where we are today. I'm glad to see Politico publish this story about all of these young Republicans and their love of Hitler. Again, their words, the exact quotes. This isn't paraphrase. This isn't a spin. These are actual quotes coming from these message boards of young Republicans across numerous states, where they say they love Hitler and they like the gas chamber. And of course, there was lots of racial slurs, homophobic slurs. Am I saying that every Republican is a racist and a sexist and they all love him? No. I have family members who are Republican. I know many, many decent people who are Republicans. I voted for Republican Rudy Giuliani when he was mayor. But it's time to be fair. If you're going to say one party has extremists, and we're not going to judge that party by what a few crazy people say, you've got to extend that to the other as well.